The cleaning crew moved quietly through the vast corridors of the city's grand space station, their uniforms a muted gray against the sleek metal walls. The janitor, a young woman named Lena, pushed her cart down the hallway, her footsteps echoing softly in the emptiness. She had been working here for nearly 5 years, her presence barely noticed amid the station's constant hum of activity and its shining citizens, each busy with matters of trade, diplomacy, or technology. Lena's day was usually predictable. She would sweep, dust, and polish, making sure the corridors gleamed under the artificial sunlight that streamed from the ceiling panels. Yet today, a small whisper of anticipation ran through her. She was not sure why, but something felt different. Perhaps it was the soft echo of piano music drifting from a nearby lounge, or the subtle vibrations in the floor as visitors and dignitaries moved through the station. The lounge was nearly empty, save for a few travelers and a producer named Carl, known across the station for discovering rare talents. He sat near the piano, reviewing data streams on a sleek hollow tablet, his attention half on the music, half on a recent contract. Lena paused outside the lounge, her mop in hand, listening to the soft melody drifting from the piano. It was a simple tune, yet it resonated in a way that made the station feel smaller, warmer, and strangely human. She had always loved music. Long before she had been assigned to the station, she had spent nights at home, playing an old keyboard she had found in her childhood attic. She had never played in front of anyone, let alone someone like Carl, whose reputation in the music world was as intimidating as it was legendary. But today, the urge was irresistible. The lounge's door was slightly ajar, and Lena hesitated for a moment, her fingers brushing against the edge of the doorframe. Then, quietly, she stepped inside. The piano was a grand model, polished to perfection, its keys gleaming under the soft lights. She paused beside it, feeling the smooth wood beneath her fingertips. Her heart beat faster, but there was no fear, only a strange clarity. Carl looked up briefly, his eyes narrowing. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice polite but guarded. Lena shook her head, stepping closer to the piano. "I just wanted to play," she said softly. Her voice was barely audible over the distant hum of the station's engines. Carl raised an eyebrow. "The piano is for guests and performers, not for cleaning staff." "I know," she said, her hand hovering over the keys. "I just thought I could try for a moment." Something in her tone, a quiet confidence tempered by humility, made Carl pause. He gestured toward the piano. A moment then, but no long concert. Lena nodded and seated herself on the bench. She closed her eyes, recalling the melodies that had lived in her memory for years. Her fingers hovered over the keys, trembling slightly. Then, with a gentle touch, she pressed the first key. The note rang out pure and clear, resonating through the lounge. It was not loud, but it carried a depth that made the air itself seem to vibrate. Carl froze, his hand resting on the edge of the hollow tablet. The sound was unlike anything he had heard before on the station, a mixture of elegance and raw emotion that seemed almost impossible to produce without years of formal training. Lena continued, letting the music flow from her as if the piano and she were one. Her fingers moved with a grace that seemed instinctive, each note deliberate, yet fluid. The melody built slowly, layering emotions of hope, longing, and quiet joy. Carl sat rigid, unable to look away, his mind trying to process how someone so humble could produce such sound. Other guests began to notice. Heads turned and whispers spread through the lounge. People paused, their conversations forgotten, as the music carried across the room. Some thought it was a recording, but there was a life in the performance that recordings could never capture. When Lena finished, she lifted her hands from the keys. There was a moment of silence, the kind that stretches impossibly long before anyone dares to speak. And Carl leaned forward, his eyes wide. "That was extraordinary," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Lena bowed her head slightly, a modest smile on her face. "Thank you," she said. "I've played for myself for years, but never for anyone else." Carl shook his head in disbelief. "Years? You've never had formal training?" "No," Lena replied. "Just practice and listening to the music around me." Carl was silent for a long moment, then leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. "I have traveled the galaxy looking for talent, and I have never heard anything like that. Your playing, it speaks." Lena felt a warmth spread through her chest, but she quickly returned to her usual humility. "I don't know if it's worth anything," she said softly. "I'm just a janitor." Carl smiled, a rare and genuine smile. "A janitor? That makes it even more remarkable. Talent like yours should not be hidden in hallways. It belongs in the world." For the next hour, Carl asked Lina to play again, each time coaxing more emotion, more subtlety from her fingers. He recorded the session discreetly, knowing that something this unique could not be contained within the walls of the station. Every note she played seemed to carry a story, as if she had captured the human experience itself in music. When she finally stopped, Lena stood and gave a polite nod. "I should return to work," she said. Carl shook his head. "No, this is just the beginning. I want to bring your music to the world. There are programs, concerts, broadcasts. People need to hear what you can do." Lena hesitated, overwhelmed by the sudden offer. Her life had been small, quiet, and predictable. The thought of stepping into a galaxy-wide spotlight was terrifying. But she remembered the feeling she had when playing, the sense of being alive in a way that nothing else gave her. "Will it be okay?" she asked quietly. Carl leaned forward. "It will be more than okay. It will be extraordinary." In the following weeks, Lena's life changed. Carl arranged for her to perform on the station's main stage, a platform that could broadcast to every colony and settlement within the sector. At first, she was nervous, unsure if she could replicate the performance that had captured Carl's attention. But as she sat at the grand piano, the same calm washed over her. She pressed the first key, and the notes soared. The audience was stunned. Across the viewing terminals of distant planets, listeners paused their daily lives, captivated by the sound. It was not just the technical perfection of the performance that drew them in, but the humanity embedded in every note. People wept, quietly smiled, and held their hands over their hearts, as if feeling the music in their very bones. Critics wrote of her as a phenomenon, an anomaly in the galaxy's history. Some speculated about genetic modification or secret training, but those who met her understood the truth. Lena's talent came from patience, observation, and a deep love for music. She had absorbed the sounds of the galaxy, the hum of engines, the whispers of corridors, the laughter of children, and transformed them into melody. Even the advanced AI systems that monitored entertainment trends were baffled. Algorithms designed to predict popular music could not account for the emotional depth of her playing. The music was human in its core, beyond calculation or replication. Carl continued to work with her, arranging concerts on distant stations and even planets where humans were still establishing settlements. Every performance seemed to inspire those who listened, reminding them of the power of simple humanity. Soldiers, traders, and scientists paused from their routines to feel the music, experiencing a connection that transcended language and species. Despite the acclaim, Lena remained humble. She continued her daily routines, sometimes sweeping corridors or polishing the floors after a concert, her love for music still rooted in the quiet moments of practice. But now, those quiet moments had a new significance. They had the power to reach across the stars. One evening, after a particularly moving performance on a distant orbital city, Carl approached her. "Do you realize what you've done?" He asked. "You've reminded everyone that no matter how advanced we become, no matter how far we travel, the essence of humanity, our emotions, our creativity, still matters. You've made them feel it again." Lena looked out at the glowing city beneath the orbiting platform, her hands resting lightly on the piano. "I just play what I feel," she said softly. "If it helps people, that's enough." Carl nodded, understanding her completely. In a galaxy obsessed with technology, strategy, and efficiency, Lena had reminded everyone that the simplest human acts, touching a key, creating a note, sharing emotion, could be the most revolutionary force of all. Her story spread, inspiring others who had believed themselves invisible or unimportant. Janitors, maintenance workers, traders, and explorers began to embrace their own hidden talents, realizing that greatness was not defined by status or title, but by the courage to act, create, and share their humanity. Years later, when asked to perform at the Central Galactic Convention, Lena walked onto the stage as she always did, her heart steady. The audience spanned thousands, many from planets she had never even visited. She pressed the first key, and the room, the station, the galaxy itself seemed to pause in recognition of the human spirit conveyed through music. Every note was a testament to the idea that no one was truly small, no act of passion insignificant, and no talent destined to remain unseen. As the final note faded, a silence fell over the crowd, a silence so deep it felt sacred. Then the applause erupted, filling every